What would you do if you walked into a luxury hotel, expecting to be treated with respect, only to be met with cold disdain and judgment? Eliana Brooks, a bright young woman returning from a prestigious study abroad program, faced scrutiny and suspicion at the Sterling Grand simply because of the color of her skin. The front desk manager, Amanda, questioned her very right to be there, humiliating her in front of other guests. But when Eliana's powerful mother arrived, the truth began to unravel, and the tide of judgment was about to turn. Stay tuned to witness a moment of justice that would change everything. The black car glided smoothly over the granite-paved street, the streetlights reflecting off its shiny surface like stars dancing on a midnight lake. Sitting in the back seat, Eliana Brooks gazed out the window, watching the world pass by where towering buildings with glowing windows shimmered like diamonds suspended in the night sky. New York City was welcoming her back after a year of studying abroad in Europe, a year that had completely transformed her perspective on life, culture, and her own identity. As valedictorian of her prestigious international program and daughter of Victoria Brooks, one of the most powerful women in the global hotel industry, Eliana had grown accustomed to excellence. Yet beneath her composed exterior, a flutter of anticipation rippled through her chest. Tonight would be different. Tonight, she would experience the Sterling Grand not as the daughter of its owner, but simply as a guest who had made a reservation like anyone else. When the car stopped in front of the Sterling Grand, Eliana's heart raced. This was no ordinary hotel. This was a symbol of opulence, a place where only the elite dared to step. Tall white marble columns reached up to the sky, crystal chandeliers inside reflected through the glass doors, sparkling like thousands of stars. Even the air seemed thick with the scent of wealth and power. Eliana took a deep breath and stepped out of the car. A cold breeze brushed past her, tousling her smooth, dark curls. Her neat white button-up dress paired with skinny jeans and designer sneakers made her look both youthful and elegant, the perfect blend of sophistication and approachability that had become her signature style during her studies abroad. She pulled her small suitcase behind her, eyes filled with a quiet confidence that came from years of watching her mother navigate spaces like this. Though she had traveled to many places around the world, this was the first time she would personally experience this hotel, the crown jewel in her mother's empire, as just another guest. As she approached the revolving glass door, memories flooded back of following her mother through service corridors as a child, of learning the intricacies of hospitality management over dinner conversations, of Victoria's unwavering lessons about excellence and dignity. Never let anyone make you feel like you don't belong, her mother had always said. Stand tall, speak clearly, and remember who you are. Eliana paused for a moment, a strange feeling sweeping over her, not quite apprehension, but an instinctive awareness that something was off. She brushed it aside, straightened her shoulders just as her mother had taught her, took a deep breath, and pushed the door open, stepping inside. What she didn't know was that behind the grand marble walls, a challenge awaited her, one that would test everything her mother had ever taught her about standing her ground. As the glass door swung closed behind her, sealing her inside the Sterling Grand's opulent lobby, Eliana couldn't possibly know that tonight would become not just a stay at a luxury hotel, but a moment that would forever change how she saw herself and her place in the world. As soon as Eliana stepped through the glass door of the Sterling Grand, she immediately sensed an invisible shift in the air. An unfamiliar energy enveloped her, not coming from the opulence of the place, but from the gazes upon her. She was not the only one to enter the lobby, yet it felt as if she were the sole focus of scrutiny. The doorman, a middle-aged man dressed in a luxurious navy blue uniform, hesitated for a split second before opening the door for her. The gesture, though slight, was enough to make her notice the difference. When other white guests entered, he bowed his head respectfully and greeted them with formal courtesy. But with her, he merely stepped aside, devoid of any smile or word of welcome. The bellhops stood scattered around the lobby, their hands gripping shiny luggage carts, but no one moved to offer help. Eliana glanced to the side and observed a white couple entering. Immediately, a young staff member rushed forward to carry their luggage, greeting them with a cheerful smile and polite salutation. The pang in her chest wasn't because she needed assistance. It was because she understood exactly why no one had offered the same courtesy to her. Yet she didn't let it show. Eliana took a deep breath, tightened her grip on her suitcase, straightened her back, and confidently strode toward the reception desk. She had grown accustomed to such looks ever since her childhood, when her mother took her to extravagant parties of the elite. She recognized that the color of her skin often made some people uncomfortable, uneasy, or even confused. But she had never allowed that to define her. However, she hadn't anticipated the outright disapproval she encountered at the front desk. Amanda Reeves, the shift manager at the hotel, stood behind the reception. A woman in her 30s with blonde hair neatly styled in a perfect bun, dark red-painted nails, and a meticulously tailored dark blue suit. Amanda had been smiling and chatting with guests, her tone full of professionalism. But the moment their eyes met, her expression shifted. The smile vanished, warmth closed off, and all that remained was a raised eyebrow, no greeting, no hello. How may I assist you? Instead, a heavy silence enveloped them. In that pause, Eliana sensed the judgment in Amanda's gaze. It wasn't just an evaluation of her appearance. It was a silent question probing Amanda's mind. What is this girl doing here? It was the same look she had grown accustomed to in luxury stores, where salespeople scrutinized her more closely than other customers, as if they feared she might do something she wasn't supposed to. Eliana stood tall, placing both hands naturally on the counter, maintaining a composed but determined expression. If Amanda expected her to shy away or lower her head, she was mistaken. But Amanda wasn't easily shaken. She watched Eliana as though waiting for a sign of hesitation, a hint that she didn't belong. When she saw nothing, she slowly tapped a finger on the counter and finally spoke. What do you need? Her words weren't friendly. They were reluctantly forced. Eliana tilted her head slightly, noting the tone that was far from the hotel service standards her mother had instilled in her. It wasn't something any guest deserved to be met with, but she kept her response calm and polite. I have a reservation. My name is Eliana Brooks. Her voice was soft and courteous, but when the name Brooks was spoken, Amanda's eyes narrowed. The brief moment of recognition was palpable, yet instead of becoming friendlier, Amanda grew more cautious. Could you show me your confirmation? She extended her hand, a request that felt more like a demand. Eliana didn't want to argue. She pulled out her phone, opened the confirmation email, and handed it to Amanda with a swift motion. Instead of glancing at it and inputting the details, Amanda took the phone faster than necessary, scanning the text as if searching for a mistake. When she found nothing wrong, she placed the phone back on the counter with a clear lack of patience. Then without saying a word, she turned back to her computer screen and began typing slowly, far too slowly. Eliana stood there, recalling the countless times she had been treated like this, deliberately stalled to make her feel alienated and isolated. Something told her this wasn't just an ordinary delay. Amanda was testing her patience. As Amanda's fingers danced sluggishly across the keyboard, Eliana watched, observing her expression. Amanda wasn't genuinely searching. She was simply stalling. Eliana tightened her grip on her handbag, but maintained an air of composure. Time stretched on, an unbearable trial where she had no right to defend herself, no one to back her up, and no one truly listening to her. 5 minutes passed, and a middle-aged man draped in an expensive cashmere coat approached the desk. Amanda immediately flashed a polite smile, her voice softening as she greeted him. Good evening, Mr. Thompson. You have an executive reservation, correct? Let me grab your key right away. No need to check the system, no need for any paperwork. Just 30 seconds, and he had his key in hand, sent off with a bright smile. Another 10 minutes passed. Eliana stood there, still like a ghost no one wanted to acknowledge. She could feel the eyes of other guests on her. Some glanced briefly, then looked away as if unwilling to get involved, while others assessed her as if she were disrupting the elegance of the place. She watched as a female staff member walked right past her, holding a tray filled with glasses. The woman's gaze flicked over Eliana for a moment before she ignored her entirely, as if she hadn't seen her. Frustration bubbled within Eliana, but she maintained her composure. She stepped forward, her voice calm but sharp. "Excuse me, could I have a glass of water?" The server hesitated, looking over at Amanda as if she needed permission to perform a simple act of service. Amanda smirked, not even looking at Eliana. "Sorry, I think we're out of water," she said, a clumsy lie to mask her true intent. From behind the desk, Amanda continued typing slowly, a gleam of satisfaction in her eyes as if savoring this moment, relishing the chance to make Eliana feel small and powerless. But Eliana wouldn't let that happen. She didn't lower her head or react immediately. Instead, she looked directly at Amanda, keeping her gaze steady and sharp. A tense silence hung in the air before she gently asked again, her tone no longer naive. "Are you implying that I shouldn't be here?" For the first time during their exchange, Amanda flinched. In that brief moment, Eliana caught a glimpse of something, surprise, perhaps a hint of unease, but it lasted only a second before Amanda regained her composure. Leaning slightly on the counter, arms crossed, she smirked. "I just thought maybe you'd feel more comfortable at another hotel." The words struck hard, no more beating around the bush. Amanda wanted Eliana to leave, to feel like she didn't deserve to be here, to withdraw quietly and avoid the embarrassment. But Amanda made a grave mistake. Eliana wasn't the type to walk away silently. She looked straight at the woman before her, her voice resolute. "I'm not going anywhere." She straightened her back, her gaze steady, as if it were firmly planted on the marble floor beneath her. The silence in the lobby thickened, heavier than ever. Amanda blinked but said nothing. Yet she wasn't about to give up this game so easily. If stalling didn't discourage Eliana, she would move to her next tactic. Subtly, she reached down beneath the counter, pressing a small button with remarkable discretion. A second later, a door beside the counter swung open, and 2 security guards stepped inside. The stakes had just risen. Eliana could feel the tension in the air rise as the 2 security guards entered the lobby, their presence exuding an intimidating authority. The hotel, once a symbol of luxury and comfort, now felt like a trap slowly closing in around her. It had been nearly an hour since she had arrived as a legitimate guest, yet she was still being treated like an unwanted intruder. It was time to end this game. With a firm voice that echoed through the lobby, Eliana walked back to the front desk, determined. "I've waited long enough. Check it again." Her tone was clear, but instead of a professional response, Amanda merely smirked, a knowing smile that suggested she was enjoying the situation. With a dramatic sigh, Amanda replied in a voice that dripped with feigned regret, "The issue isn't the reservation." The words hung in the air, and Eliana felt a chill run down her spine as the atmosphere shifted. Confusion washed over her. "What do you mean?" she asked, her heart racing. Amanda tilted her head, her hand gliding slowly across the counter as if weighing her words carefully. "We just received a report of a missing wallet," she stated, her tone calculated. She threw Eliana a look full of implications, as if a verdict had been delivered without any evidence to support it. In that moment, Eliana froze. The wave of humiliation crashed over her like a violent tide. She knew she was innocent, but she also understood the gravity of the accusation. This was no longer just an unwarranted delay. This was a setup, a deliberate attempt to ruin her reputation in front of everyone present. Amanda not only wanted to remove her from the hotel, she wanted to paint her as a criminal. Eliana opened her mouth to protest, but before she could utter a single word, Amanda pressed a button beneath the counter. The door to the staff area swung open, and the 2 security guards stepped forward, their expressions impassive but their intent clear. Eliana felt a surge of anger rising within her, stronger than anything she had ever experienced before. She knew that one wrong move, one loud word, and everyone would automatically assume she was guilty simply based on the color of her skin. Taking a deep breath, Eliana held her gaze steady as the guard approached, refusing to back down or panic. "I'm not going anywhere," she declared firmly, her voice cutting through the tension like a knife. Her defiance made the entire space freeze for a few seconds, drawing the attention of the onlookers who had previously been indifferent. Whispers began to circulate, and eyes turned toward her, no longer curious, but now laced with judgment. Amanda, sensing the shift in the crowd, smiled smugly. She's being too aggressive, she remarked to the security guards, feigning concern for the safety of the other guests. We need to ensure a peaceful environment. The implications of her words were clear. Eliana had now become the problem, not the victim. But Eliana wasn't about to let Amanda turn her into a villain. She felt the anger flare in her chest, not just for herself, but for countless others who had been mistreated simply because of their skin color. I'm not the problem here, and you know it, she said, her voice steady and unwavering. Confidence in her tone made Amanda pause, if only for a moment. Amanda turned to the security guard, her expression feigning helplessness as she gestured toward Eliana. Look at her. She's uncooperative. We need to get her out before this escalates. Eliana knew this was the moment to act. If she didn't reclaim control of the situation, Amanda and the guards would succeed in their plan to humiliate her. Before she could make her next move, the hotel's large doors swung open with a force that echoed across the lobby. The sound of high heels clicking on the marble floor resonated sharply, capturing everyone's attention. Eliana turned her head instinctively, and as soon as she saw the woman entering, a cold shiver ran down her spine. It was Victoria Brooks. Victoria entered with an aura of authority that commanded instant respect. Her gaze was as cold as ice, her expression hard and unyielding. In that moment, Eliana felt a wave of relief wash over her. Her mother had arrived, and with her presence, the entire dynamic of the hotel shifted. The tension that had been suffocating Eliana lifted, and the eyes of the guests and staff turned in unison toward the powerful figure walking through the lobby. Amanda froze, her hand trembling slightly as she realized the gravity of her mistake. The atmosphere shifted from one of humiliation, directed at Eliana, to a public confrontation. The two security guards, who had been prepared to escort Eliana out, now stood uncertain, their authority crumbling in the face of Victoria's presence. Without hesitation, Victoria pointed directly at the security officer, her voice low and commanding. Let her go. Now. Her words carried the weight of an order, leaving no room for defiance. The crowd held its breath, the tension palpable as the guards exchanged glances, unsure of how to proceed. Victoria's gaze remained fixed on them, her confidence unwavering. The guards, sensing the shift in power, released their hold on Eliana, stepping back without a word. The release was immediate, and Eliana felt the tension ease from her arm, but the frustration still simmered beneath her surface. As Amanda attempted to regain control, her voice softened, but still held an air of authority. Miss Brooks, I can explain, but Victoria cut her off, her focus unyielding. I don't want to hear your excuses. You've humiliated my daughter without cause, and that's unacceptable. The silence that followed was heavy, filled with the realization of the injustice that had just unfolded. Eliana stood tall, no longer the victim, but a figure of resilience beside her mother. Victoria's presence radiated strength, and in that moment, Eliana knew they would not back down. The tide was turning, and the Sterling Grand would never be the same again. Victoria stood unwavering, her gaze locked onto Amanda as the tension in the lobby thickened. The air crackled with anticipation as all eyes turned toward the confrontation unfolding before them. Eliana felt a surge of pride watching her mother take control of the situation, embodying the strength and authority she had always admired. Let me be clear, Victoria stated, her voice steady and commanding. The only person who doesn't belong here is you, Amanda Reeves. Her words sliced through the atmosphere, ringing with an undeniable truth that echoed off the marble walls. Amanda's face paled, the confidence she had once exuded rapidly evaporating. The room held its breath, the silence stretching as Victoria continued. You accused my daughter of theft without a shred of evidence. You treated her like a criminal when she is, in fact, a valued guest who has every right to be here. Each word was deliberate, punctuated with the weight of her authority. The crowd, once merely observers, now felt the gravity of the injustice that had occurred. Eliana's heart raced as she watched the realization dawn on those around her. They had witnessed Amanda's prejudice, her attempts to undermine Eliana's dignity, and now they were confronted with the truth. Eliana had been subjected to humiliation, but in that moment, she felt a surge of validation. She wasn't just a victim, she was part of a larger narrative about justice and equality. Amanda opened her mouth to respond, but Victoria silenced her with a single, piercing look. You will not manipulate this situation any longer. Your actions have consequences. The tension in the lobby shifted as murmurs rippled through the crowd, some guests glancing at one another in disbelief, others shaking their heads at the unfolding drama. Eliana stood beside her mother, feeling a newfound strength coursing through her. This was no longer just about her. It was about all those who had been treated unfairly, all those who had felt the weight of discrimination. She took a deep breath, grounding herself in the moment. Victoria turned her attention back to Amanda, her voice lowering but remaining firm. I expect a full apology for your behavior, not just to my daughter, but to everyone who witnessed this disgrace. Amanda's expression shifted from defiance to panic, and for the first time, she seemed to grasp the gravity of her actions. Amanda stammered, but the words faltered in her throat. The crowd was watching, and she knew she was cornered. The weight of the moment pressed down on her, the realization that her position was crumbling beneath her. Check the VIP system, Victoria commanded, her tone leaving no room for refusal. The challenge was clear. Amanda had no choice but to confront the truth. The tension in the room was palpable as Amanda hesitated, her fingers trembling above the keyboard. With every keystroke, the truth drew nearer. Eliana felt her pulse quicken, the anticipation building as the seconds stretched out, each moment heavy with expectation. Finally, the screen displayed the confirmation, Eliana Brooks, VIP reservation. Gasps echoed in the lobby, and Amanda's face turned ashen as the truth was laid bare. Victoria stood tall, the embodiment of justice as she spoke. You insisted my daughter was not in the system. You made her wait and treated her with disrespect. And when she stood her ground, you fabricated accusations against her. This is the truth, and it will not be ignored. The crowd's murmurs grew louder, a mixture of shock and outrage at Amanda's actions. People exchanged glances filled with disbelief, realizing how they had witnessed the unraveling of the lie. Eliana felt a wave of relief wash over her. The humiliation she had endured was finally acknowledged. And let me be clear, Victoria continued, her voice strong and unwavering. This hotel will not tolerate discrimination of any kind. Not now, not ever. The weight of her words resonated deeply, a promise that change was not just possible, but inevitable. Amanda stood frozen, the reality of her situation sinking in. She had crossed a line, and now there would be no escape. Victoria's gaze bore into her, unyielding and fierce. The crowd sensed the shift. They had been part of a moment where justice was being reclaimed. Security, Victoria called, her voice steady. Please escort Ms. Reeves out. The command was met with silence, but the authority in her voice left no room for dissent. The guards approached, and Amanda's resolve crumbled as she realized she had lost everything. As the guards led Amanda away, Eliana felt the weight of the moment lift. She had faced adversity and emerged stronger, supported by the unwavering force of her mother. Together, they had turned a moment of injustice into a powerful statement of change. Eliana and Victoria exchanged a glance, a silent understanding passing between them. This was more than just a confrontation. It was a turning point. They had stood up against discrimination, and in doing so, they had begun to inspire others to do the same. As they walked away from the reception desk, Eliana felt a sense of empowerment. The Sterling Grand would never be the same, and she knew that her actions, alongside her mother's, would echo far beyond the luxurious walls of the hotel. They had not only reclaimed their dignity, but had also paved the way for a new era of inclusivity and respect. Victoria stood still for a long moment after Amanda disappeared through the staff room door. The lobby remained engulfed in a heavy silence, one that was not typical of a luxurious establishment, but rather felt like the aftermath of an earthquake, shocking, unsettled, and filled with tension. The staff near the front desk avoided Victoria's gaze, some bending down to focus on their computer screens, others pretending to be busy with papers or ledgers, all aware that they could no longer escape the implications of what had just transpired. Victoria's eyes scanned the room, cold and sharp, as though she were weighing who among them deserved to remain in her employ. She locked eyes with William Calloway, the hotel's senior manager, who stood near the entrance to the staff hallway, his face pale and hands clasped in front of him, as though silently praying for a miracle. "How many times has this happened?" Victoria's voice rang out, not too loud, but carrying the weight of authority that demanded an answer. The silence that followed was deafening, as everyone in the room understood that the true answer was unacceptable. William swallowed nervously, his eyes darting around the room in search of an ally, but there was none. Everyone was waiting to see how he would respond. "Miss Brooks, I can't say for sure, but this isn't uncommon, is it?" His voice trembled slightly, revealing his discomfort and admitting the truth. Victoria interrupted him, not allowing him the chance to offer excuses. "No, ma'am," he admitted, his voice growing smaller as if he, too, felt the weight of shame and acknowledging the reality. The tension in the room thickened, the gravity of the situation pressing down on everyone present. Turning back to address the entire staff, not just those at the front desk, but also servers, bellmen, and security personnel, Victoria's voice cut through the silence with unwavering clarity. "From this moment on, all staff must undergo anti-discrimination training. Anyone who disagrees can leave immediately." Her words were not a suggestion. They were an edict, and everyone understood the seriousness behind them. No one dared to object. Not a single soul among them had the courage to risk their job clinging to outdated beliefs. Victoria lifted her chin, her gaze sweeping over each person as if testing their resolve. Those who opposed her decision would find no place here, and they all understood the stakes. After a few moments of silence, Victoria turned her attention back to William. "I want a full report on similar incidents that have occurred in the last 3 years, including a list of involved staff, affected guests, and how the hotel handled them. I want it on my desk by tomorrow morning." "Yes, ma'am," William whispered, lowering his head, knowing he had no right to refuse. With that, the meeting came to a close, but the atmosphere remained charged. The staff were now faced with the reality of change, and the air was thick with uncertainty. They had witnessed not only a confrontation, but a declaration that the old ways of operating would no longer be tolerated. Eliana, having observed her mother's decisive actions, felt a sense of pride swell within her. She was no longer just a girl who had been treated unfairly. She had become a symbol of change. The events of the night before had ignited a fire within her, a determination to ensure that what had happened to her would not happen to others. Victoria exited the meeting room, her demeanor still commanding as she walked through the corridors of the executive floor. The sound of her footsteps echoed against the cold marble floor, each step a reminder of the power she wielded, not just as a businesswoman, but as a mother fighting for her daughter's dignity. Eliana sat on a long chair by the large window, sunlight streaming through the clear glass and casting a warm glow on her face. But even as the light illuminated her features, it couldn't erase the exhaustion in her eyes. She was no longer filled with anger or bitterness. Instead, she felt a profound disappointment that the world still operated in such a way. "What are you thinking?" Victoria asked softly, her tone changing from commanding to one of concern. Eliana took a deep breath, processing everything that happened. "I hate it," she finally said, her voice devoid of bitterness, only disappointment. "Not just because of how they treated me, but because this isn't the first time, and it won't be the last." Victoria nodded, fully understanding her daughter's pain. She had experienced similar injustices throughout her own career, witnessing countless instances where people were treated differently based solely on the color of their skin. But this time, she said with certainty, it will be the last. For you, for others like you, for anyone who steps into the Sterling Grand from now on. The system is outdated and it's time for it to change. Eliana looked at her mother, astonished by the determination in her voice. The last? She echoed, a hint of surprise in her tone. Yes, Victoria affirmed. For you, and for anyone who deserves better. The next morning, the real storm began. Victoria summoned the entire hotel management team for an emergency meeting. Branch directors, department heads, senior managers, all were present in the large meeting room, the air thick with tension. Starting today, Victoria declared, her voice carrying a weight that demanded respect. This hotel will no longer be a place that tolerates any form of discrimination in any way. As she outlined the new policies that would take effect immediately, Eliana felt a sense of hope. Every employee, from reception to senior management, would participate in mandatory training on anti-discrimination and unconscious bias. An anonymous reporting channel would be established, allowing employees to report inappropriate behavior without fear of retaliation. Anyone found engaging in racist or biased behavior would face immediate suspension or termination. The room fell silent as she finished speaking. Some looked uncomfortable, but no one dared to speak up. They all understood that when Victoria Brooks said something, it became reality. William, still trying to manage the situation, hesitated before speaking. Miss Brooks, I understand that these changes are important, but it may take some time for the staff to adjust. Victoria's gaze intensified, causing everyone to stiffen. They can adapt quickly or they can leave. We don't have time to wait. As the meeting concluded, a series of unprecedented changes began to unfold in the history of the Sterling Grand. Eliana was no longer just a girl who had been treated unfairly. She had become a catalyst for reform, a symbol of change that would resonate throughout the hotel and beyond. As Eliana and Victoria walked out of the meeting room, they both knew that the Sterling Grand would never be the same again. They had not only fought for justice that day, they had begun a movement that would ripple through the industry, ensuring that no one would ever have to endure the same prejudices Eliana faced. Their actions had opened a door for future generations, and it was a door that would remain open for all who would follow.